Welcome to These Are the Blades of Our Lives, the figure skating show where I talk to you about figure skating like it is drama for our mamas. Guys, as everyone know, the men's single portion of the Olympic concluded. And I did not get to watch this event live because I was at work. But per usual, I was on the gram and looking up tweets. So I saw the result without having watched the figure skating. And when I saw the result, literally the first thing that came to my mind was, what in the name of Freaky Friday the 13th went down at this event? Then, of course, I came home. I watched the event and I needed some time to process it. So I didn't make a video right away after I saw the event. I decided to make a video this morning after I had some time to process what I saw. And before I get into the skating, what I want to say is we talk a lot about the menning, how inconsistent the men can be at any given event. And the reason for that is the tremendous strain that is on them physically, mentally, and emotionally. The number of quad that these men are constantly pursuing leave their bodies battered, injured, and they're always having to come back from injury to compete. And so for the world to expect consistency, yet at the same time a 5 program, a 4 program, a 3 program quad layout is incredibly demanding. And when you really look at it, when you really look at these men, they're mostly children. Kyle Mura is only 21. Shun Soto, Mikhail Shudorov, Steven Gugolev, Ilya Melanin are all only 22. Yuma Kagiyama is only 23. Nika Igatse and Daniel Grasso are only 24. Out of those top contenders that were in the conversation, the oldest are Junhwan Cha and Adam Sion-Han-Fa at a whopping 25. 25 for the top contenders was the oldest age. This is the pressure. This is the physical strain that is being put on these children. I will be perfectly honest with you. I was a hot mess at 21. I barely had it together at 25. And yet we are expecting these children to perform at such a high level under so much physical pain, under so much emotional stress. So it is inevitable that we end up seeing what we saw at the Olympic, because the International Skating Union, the ISU, has created the environment for this to happen. How many of these men were skating coming back from injury? How many of them were saying they were skating this season free from pain? Not many. Not many. So when we take the physical pain with a lot of these men medicating themselves just to get through a program, and you add it to the stress of being at the Olympic, the thing that you dream about your entire life, we're going to get what we got at the 2026 Milan Olympic. I don't think any of these young men have anything to be ashamed about what they did. Yes, they were not at their best, and we will talk about that in the skating. But goodness gracious, how much were they dealing with just to get to the point where they are? at the actual event, the way it went down, to I think no one's bingo card, if we're being perfectly honest, was the winner here was Mikhail Shidorov. And silver medal, more expected, was Yuma Kageyama. And third place was the little engine that could, Shun Soto. And fourth place was Junhwan Cha. And fifth place, again, not in the bingo card, Steven Gugolev. In sixth place, Peter Gumenik. In seventh place, Adam Siohen Fa. In eighth place, again, not on anyone's imaginary or otherwise bingo card, Ilya Melanin. In ninth place, Daniel Grasso. In 10th place, Nika Agatse. In 11th place, Kevin Amos. In 12th place, Andrew Tugashev. In 13th place, Kyle Mura. In 14th place, Lucas Brucci. In 15th place, Matteo Rizzo. In 16th place, Alexander Selevko. In 17th place, Boyang Zheng. In 18th place, Denis Vasiliev. In 19th place, Kirilo Masak. In 20th place, Maxim Neymar. In 21, Vladimir Samalov. In 22nd place, Donovan Carrillo. In 23rd place, Yu Hisang Lee. And in 24th place, Adam Hagara. And of course, not all of these men came into this Olympic with the same expectation, with the same goals, wanting to achieve the same thing. They all came for different reasons, with different purposes, and with very different stories to tell and things that they wanted to accomplish. So for a skater like Adam Hagara, this was his first Olympic. This is his second season as a senior. I think it was about him being in the moment, showing that he could skate in the big league. Then you have a skater like Yuhan Seng Lee. This was just a dream come true. For him to have the kind of performances that he had at this event was just incredible. We didn't even see him in the competition of making the Olympics, and to make the Olympic and perform so well, having made it into the free, that was his story. Then you have skaters like Donovan Carrillo, when it was all about representation. It was about the fun. It was about the performance. It was about the joy of doing the things that he loved. That was his Olympic journey. Then we come to somebody like Maxim Neymar, where we're seeing courage in devastating loss. Yes, the jumps were a major barrier for him in the long program. However, his Olympic was about being in the moment and living that moment, not just for himself, but for his parents and for his fans and for his people that support him, his student. That's what his Olympic was about. And we can say the same thing about Kirilo Masak. Not only did he have a personal best moment in the short program, the best we've seen him perform that short program. He did everything in that short program amazingly, but we knew that short program wasn't about him. It was about a much bigger message that he was there to represent. And yes, the long program was a tale of two skates. It was a complete opposite from what we saw in the short program. However, that was not what his story was about. It was about so much more. And then we got to like the skaters that we were like, okay, you had yourself a Denis Vasiliev. That short program was the best we saw him all season. It was a joy to watch. It was a light. It was effortless. And the long program showed the beautiful body and hand movement. Yes, unfortunately, the jumps did not work out, but it did not diminish for what he has contributed to the sport. We also had Boyang Zheng at his third Olympic, showing so much growth and maturity. We have lived through an incredible era in which we saw technical boy in Jang, and to now be at his third Olympic, one of the oldest male skaters there with 3 Olympic cycles under him. And it just felt like a sense of closure for an era. It felt like a completion of a journey in the best, most positive way. And then we had other skaters like, Alexander Selevko, who the first half of that short program was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And then it just kind of fell apart by the time he got to the combination. The first half of his long was also incredibly good. And then it became a question of stamina. And this is why I say, so a skater like Alexander Selevko would definitely be more of an artistic skater. But now he has to find stamina to do the quads while still trying to perform. It's not an easy balance. Then you have other skaters like Lucas Bucci, these really unique individual skaters, who is also coming back from injury. So we're not getting to see him at his best, but we know the potential is there. Another skater that falls into that category is Matteo Rizzo, also coming back from injury. The long and the short program at this event, again, not technically where he would want to be, but that is not his Olympic story. His Olympic story was that incredible moment that he had in the team event where he clutched that Olympic bronze medal for himself, for his country, for his teammates. Then we got to Andrew Tugashev. Regardless of how you feel about these skaters, Tugashev saved and delivered the best short program he possibly could have delivered, and he did it when it counted the most. He really delivered at the Olympic, and then he continued on in the long program where he had a personal best, and I quite enjoyed that step sequence from him. Then we got to some part of the skating where I really had to wonder. For Kevin Amos, for example, I felt like the tech caller was working so hard to keep Kevin Amos behind Daniel Grasso. And that had to do with a lot of that home court advantage. And that is the part of skating that we need to focus on gutting and getting rid of. Because Kevin came both in that short and in that long program, and he fought to stay on his feet. Some of these jumps, the way he managed to save them for creativity and just determination alone, I would have given him some positive GOE, because he was determined to not go down on the ice no matter what. And he didn't. Another skater was Nika Agatse. You guys know I am the first one to bash Nika Agatse because his skating skill is not where it needs to be. However, he did 4 programs here at the Olympics. He did 2 short programs and 2 long programs. He came and he did what he could. And he is still a European champion. And the hope is that now he's going to go back and he's going to try to balance the skating, knowing that it's an artistic sport. While maintaining his technical arsenal, he is now going to try to grow his vocabulary of movement. That is what I hope he takes away from this Olympic. Then again, I had to have some moment with the tech caller, because the same tech caller that saw that Junhwan Cha had a level 3 in the step sequence in the short program also saw that Daniel Grasso had a clean short program. His jumps are so cheated and wobbly, while his skating is so awkward. I don't get it. I also don't know why we had to kill the Pope in Milan at the Olympic and then have one of the most underwhelming costume changes in figure skating. I really do feel like his placement in the short program was pure favoritism. It was pure politics, that backdoor part that I don't like about figure skating. Yet at the same time, that is not the skater's fault. This is not Daniel Grasso's fault. He's not the first one to benefit from this, and he won't be the last one to benefit from this. This is the International Skating Union. This is the tech callers. This is the judges. This is the backdoor dealing, that rotten core of figure skating that needs to be dealt with. Now we get to probably what I would say is the most shocking moment of these Olympics so far, which is Ilya Melinin in 8th place. Not the gold medal that he was projected to win, not a silver medal, not a podium finish, not a top 6 finish, but a top 10 finish. Something that none of us could have imagined. But before we get to that long program, we need to take a look at that short program, what he did technically. It's not just about having difficult jumps. It's the fact that he chose to put his combination, his quad combination, in the bonus section. The amount of strength, the amount of mental willpower that it takes for you to decide to do your quad combo at the second half of your program, when you're tired, when you're exhausted. Goodness gracious. And yes, that long program was nothing like what Ilya expected for himself, or we, the viewing public, the fans, expected from him. It was a pretty, when I say something, I stand firm on it. I have not been a fan of Ilya's 2 programs this season. And I have said that many times. I felt like the program compositions were more jump drill than they were actual choreography. What I will say, and I have said before, is that I have so much respect for Ilya's commitment to his art. To him, he believed in these 2 programs. And every time he stepped on the ice, he skated those programs like he believed in them. The story that he was trying to tell, his vision that he was trying to project, he believed in that 100%. And as someone who loves skaters, who have individual personalities, who have unique point of view, I respected him for that. His belief in his art form, although it was not my cup of tea, made me respect him. And I have said this, and I said this like 2 seasons ago. What Ilya needs is to find a choreographer that will take all of his strength and create a vocabulary of movement that will allow him to grow in his skating skills. Because unfortunately, and again, this is not about Ilya Melinin, it's about the sport. Unfortunately, figure skating was supposed to have 2 separate portions. There was supposed to be the technical portion, and there was supposed to be the artistic portion, which was, your program, your composition, your skating skill. And the 2 were not supposed to be able to influence each other. So if you had a skater that was incredibly artistic, that would not automatically boost their jumping ability or their technical score. And likewise, if you had a skater that was technically incredible, that would not boost his program component, his composition, or his skating score. Unfortunately, that is not what we have seen in figure skating. What we have seen is that if a skater is able to jump, if the skater has the technical, then the judges will give them the PCS scores. Unfortunately, as brilliant of a technician as Ilya Melinin is, he did not have the program composition. He did not have the skating skills, but the judges still rewarded him for it. And I feel like that's why we didn't have a choreographer who was willing to invest in giving him room to grow and creating a program with a vocabulary of movement that is suited for him, because the choreographers understood, regardless of whether his program had actual choreography or it was just a jump drill, the judges were going to score him the same. And so the choreographers phoned in to program for this young man. And when those jumps failed him because of the tremendous amount of mental and physical pressure that he was under, when those jumps failed him, because his choreographers also failed him, because the International Skating Union failed him, because the system failed him, he did not have anything else to keep him up. Imagine if Ilya had a better program. Imagine if Ilya had a better composition. They had worked on the skating skill. He might have still made it onto the podium because there would have been something there to hold him up. And that fault does not lie with that young man. It lies with the system. So we're not gonna go there and act like this poor young man having the skate that he has is not about the pressure of him doing 7 quad. We're not gonna do that. We know what Ilya is capable of because we've seen it since 2003. And to an extent, we are all responsible for what happened to that young man on that ice today. When I made my prediction, I always put him first. When we made our prediction, we always put him first. We put all of that pressure on a 22-year-old child's shoulder, and it crushed him. In an event that should have been his greatest achievement, he was crushed under the pressure that we as a collectivism, that a system put on him. The U.S. Skating Federation is probably one of the shittiest and worst federation in this building up these skaters only to watch them implode. And I read this on Twitter and I could not help but agree with it. I feel like the media prayed for this to happen. When that person wrote that on Twitter, it really hit me. They prayed for this to happen because having Ilya be an Olympic champion would have been nice. It would have been great. But having poor Ilya implode the way that he imploded, oh my goodness, the clicks that they are now getting. This was heartbreaking. This was devastating because regardless of whether you are a fan of Ilya or a fan of his program, what none of us could take from him is his raw talent. He is a once-in-a-generation, technically incredible skater. And I believe it, and I still believe it. He is a skater that could learn, that could grow. Those PCS scores that he receives, he could get to a point where he really does deserve it. And I don't want this one moment in his career to be his defining moment. The same way when Nathan Chen had something similar happen to him at the Olympic. He came back and he dominated. And then he came to the next Olympic and he won and he redeemed himself. I pray that Ilya goes home. He forgets about this event. He's with his mother, with his family. He just breathes and come back to be the champion that we know he's capable of being, to be the full package skater that we know he's capable of being. This was so heartbreaking. This was so devastating. This really was. And unfortunately, it wasn't just Ilya that we saw this happen to. We saw something similar happen with Adam Sion-Hanfa. This is a skater who has been so badly injured for the last 2 seasons. And when he decided not to go to the European Union Championship, I was like, yes, this is incredible decision making by an athlete. This is incredible decision making by a team. Realizing that he's injured and deciding, let us take this time to heal and recuperate. And when he stepped out onto that Olympic ice for that short program, I felt the tension of that short program in every bone of my body. It was that perfect balance of artistry and technical. Adam is that skater who falls into that whole package where he's telling you a story, where he's invested in the story, and at the same time, he's capable of delivering those quads. However, by the time we got to the long program, it was such a different story. He was on the podium after that short program with a bronze medal in his hand. And then he stepped up in that short program. And again, we saw a young man with the weight of what it means to be an Olympian on his shoulder. And the weight crushed him. The weight crushed him. And we know Adam is such a beautiful storyteller. He is one of those skaters who can take something conceptually and make it a motion picture on ice. We love that about him. And for him to be so close to that Olympic medal and to just watch it slip away because he was not fully healed, because he had to come back for that Olympic dream that he's invested so much of his life in and try to compete while in pain. Under such tremendous pressure, we watch that bronze medal just slipped away. Just slipped away. And we need to ask, like, what conversation do we need to have? What conversation should we be having? When we say the men are menning, why are they menning? What within the institution is causing this to happen? And then there were some other skaters who completely went the opposite. We start with, Peter Gumenik. This was his first international competition ever. And we saw the nerves get him in the short program. We've seen him compete nationally several times, and we know what he's capable of. We didn't see that in the short program. However, when we got to the long program, I have to say, this is the most composed and calm program I have seen from a man all season. He came in, he had a job to do, he clocked in, he did the job, he punched out. It was all business, which is very strange to say because when I do watch Peter perform nationally, he's a very performative skater. He's a very, musically inclined skater. And I think there was some issues with his music getting cleared, so all of that probably added to it. But this program was very businesslike. It was very technical. It was very proficient. But I don't feel like he was connecting with his music all that well. I don't feel like he was invested. I feel like he was like, I have a job. I have these 5 quads. I'm going to do these 5 quads. And then there's some extra other stuff there. I'm going to get those extra other stuff done. And I'm going to clock out. Again, that long program, his composure, his ability to technically deliver everything cleanly. Wow. And then being able to finish in top 6 at the Olympic, when the Olympic, other than the qualifier, I guess if we want to count the qualifier, the Olympic qualifier that happened in Beijing, this would be his second international competition. But for your second international competition to be the Olympic and to keep your nerves in check and not crumble, wow. The most surprising skater for me across the entire figure skating event so far is one Steven Gugolev. Another clean short program for Steven, and I was like, good job. Good job. But it wasn't just about what he was doing technically. It was the fact that when we got to the long program, this was the most emotive, performative, and invested I have seen Gugolev. And he did all of that while being at his technical best. His effort and hard work, you could tell it really paid off. And we again have been on this journey with this young man. We know when he came out as a junior, the amount of pressure that he was under because he could do all these quads at such a young age, and he was heralded as the next coming of the great Canadian male skaters. And then puberty hit, and he went from like a tiny little thing to being 3 times his original size. Then injuries hit. And instead of this great Canadian hope, he was not even in the conversation. And then he gets to the Olympic and he delivers 4 good programs. Literally, I saw Gugolev extending and stretching and giving us face from Gugolev, who is usually stone cold, no emotion. We saw face. And that is the part of figure skating that I love. When these skaters put in the hard work, they put in the effort, and they come on Olympic ice at probably the most difficult event in their career, and they have a moment like he had at these Olympic. That is the beautiful part about it that I just love. But then I have to go from the happiness of a Steven Gugolev to the what the fuck are we doing Junhwan Cha situation. I literally saw that short program where Jun was at his best. This was Junhwan Cha buckling down and doing what he needed to do. Listen, he took a long, hard look at the triple axel like he normally did, and he didn't back away from it. He did it. And I was like, yes, we're finally going to give him the PCS score that he deserved. I saw what he did in that step sequence, and I was like, +5, level 4 step sequence, +5, +5. And then I saw the scores, and I was like, this is that passport situation. This is that federation situation. And then we go back to a true tragedy of figure skating, because some of it is just clickbait tragedy. But true tragedy of figure skating was when what we had happened to Yuna Kim in Sochi. Or if we go to what happened with Wakaba Higuchi, when she skated in the team event and got 1 score. Then we got to the individual where she did the exact same skate and she got buried under skaters who fell on elements. These kind of tragedy, and what we have to take away from that, it's a question of weak ass federation. The placement of Junhwan Cha in that short program had nothing to do with the skating and everything to do with a weak federation. The South Korean Federation was one of the major factors of Junhwan Cha getting the scores he did, getting the placement that he did. It was one of the major factors of Yuna Kim walking away with a silver medal and not with that gold medal. Because you better believe, if Yuna Kim in Sochi represented the USA, represented Canada, represented France, shit would have been burnt down. We would have been having a whole conversation. All the judges would have been brought under question. And we would have had a whole different... As a matter of fact, the judges would never have even thought of doing what they did if Yuna Kim represented the US, Canada, or France, or if she represented Russia. If Russia had a Yuna Kim and the judges tried to do to Yuna Kim what they did, the ISU would have been apologizing to Yuna Kim. And that is the question of the passport and the privilege and the politics and the strength of the federation. That is what we saw with June. And then we got to the long program and he fell on the quad toe. And I was like, okay, I understand. But at the same time, everything else in that program was such world-class skating. His jumps had so much power, so much height. They meant something. The spins, his body movement, the way he was just liquid Everything about his skating was the complete package. And I couldn't help but think, had he been fairly scored in that short program, would we be having a different conversation? Would we be having a different conversation with Junhwan Cha if, the placements weren't more or less politically determined? Would we now be having a different conversation? If the PCS scores and the technical scores really were judged the way they were supposed to, would we be having a different conversation than the one we're having with Junhwan Cha? And then finally we got to the podium. That most satisfying bronze medal. I do feel like so far the medals who have been awarded, the happiest people are the bronze medalists. Team Italy was ecstatic with their bronze medal. Piper and Paul, incredibly happy with their bronze medal. And then we get to Shun Soto, who, again, incredibly happy with that bronze medal. Maybe that bronze medal is the medal for happiness. I don't know. But we got to Shun Sato. The fact that he managed to salvage that combination in the short program, he was way off his axis and he managed to salvage it, absolutely amazing. However, the dream of Shun Sato breaking 100 in the short program is still alive. We will carry it on to Worlds. I believe you could do it, Shun. You can break 100 at Worlds for the short program. That long program, another very solid long program from him. Not as good as what he had at the team event, but aside from a small, tiny, little misstep, that long program was almost clean. Listen, the Firebird had almost set the ice on fire. Again, this was the most emotive, the most invested I had seen him in that program. You could see how much effort and hard work he put into fixing those things that we had been complaining about, which is his posture, which is his leg extension, which is the spins, which is the step sequence. He is putting in the work and it paid off. It paid off with a bronze medal here. How incredible is that? And his coach has got to be one of the funnest part of this entire Olympic cycle so far. It must be so incredible to have a coach that's so invested in you, that's so into the program, and that's such a personal hype man. That must be incredible. And then we got to the silver medal, Yuma Kagiyama. So after his mostly clean short program, I was uncertain. Because for me, Yuma is a much stronger short program skater than he is a long program. If he wants to make a statement, Yuma usually makes that statement in the short program. So I really didn't know what would happen in that long program. And when Yuma stepped up to that long program, he skated that program like he had a medal to lose instead of skating like he is fighting to win. The heavy weight on his shoulder was seen not only in his jumps, but also in his basic skating. Just within the choreography, the way he delivered it, his step sequence, the way he was unsure about everything. I'll be honest with you guys, and you guys know I love Yuma Kagiyama. He is one of my ideal skaters in terms of that balance of technical and artistry, in terms of the beautiful edge quality, the way he cuts across the ice like butter, the softness of his knee bend, his beautiful arch back, his extended toe point. I am a huge fan of Yuma Kagiyama. I don't know if I would have had him on the podium with that long program, guys, if I'm being perfectly honest. because it wasn't just about the mistakes he made on the jumps, and I don't think a single one of those jumps he delivered with confidence, with clarity, with the capability that we know and have seen from him. But it was more than just the jumps. It was the performance. You could tell he wasn't in his body. He wasn't comfortable. It was in his footwork, and he's usually so secure on his blade. And for the first time, we saw him being not so secure. I don't know, guys, if I would have him on the podium after that long program. And that again is the conversation that we need to have. Those conversation that just because all season we have talked about Yuma getting the silver medal. And by the way, this is his 4th silver medal. He's got 2 team silver medals and 2 individual silver medals. But I don't know if that situation where we have anointed a skater with a particular medal, and then we find ourselves in a position where we have to deliver that medal, regardless of how that skater skate, is a conversation we still need to be had. Because if Yuma, as a skater that is program, component, skating skill skater, gives us a program where he doesn't have the performance, he's not delivering the program the way it's meant to deliver, so that composition is not there, and he's shaky on basic skating skills that he excels at, I don't know if him then getting a silver medal is any better than the technical skaters getting medals just for jumping. There has to be a balance. There has to be a fairness to this sport. And unfortunately, as much as it breaks my heart, I wouldn't have had him on the podium, guys. I'm sorry. He didn't do enough in the short program. Had he had the short program he had in the teams and the individual, and then he skated that way, I feel like I would have had more of a justified reason for it. But the fact that his short program was not his best, and then he had this kind of long program, and for him to still be rewarded a silver medal, guys, I don't know. I don't know. And then we got to the most happy surprise of figure skating. When we say the blades are thin, the ice is slippery, this is figure skating. Anything that could happen will happen. This is the crystallization of that statement. This is the crystallization of that statement. Mikhail Shadorov is the crystallization of anything that could happen will happen. Mikhail he rose to the occasion and delivered at the Olympic in the short program. That Dune program that he's had for 2 seasons, I felt it in that short program. He skated like a skater with nothing to lose and everything to win. He didn't seem like he was weighed down by the expectation, which made sense because given the season he's had, there was no expectation. There was no expectation for him to be on the podium. And he skated like that's exactly the situation he found himself. Like this was just him being at the Olympic to gain incredible experience and to grow from that experience. And so he just went out there and he skated that short program. And then we got to the long program. As a lover of jumps, you guys know, I love the sport as a whole. I love the artistic aspect of it. I love the jump part of it. As a lover of jumps in that long program, aside from him missing the quad lutz, where he had that little step out in the quad lutz. This was a master class in jumping. Nothing makes me happier than beautiful, powerful jumps, and Mikhail has that effortless light jump technique that comes out of the Alexei Mishin school. His foundation is so solid that the jumps just come out of nowhere. I also love the fact that his coach, Alexei Yermov, is the 1994 champion, a student of Professor Mishin. Seeing this continuation of good, solid jump technique being taught is so incredible. And of course, Mikhail is one of those skaters that I pray will work on the other aspect of the skating. You know, his skating skill, his musicality, his posture, his leg extension, his connection to the audience. I hope he will work on all of that. But the thing about his program is that when the jumps are on, he is able to sell you the rest of the program, and you don't really mind that he has these things he needs to work on, like the spins and the step sequence, because you're so amazed by how wonderful the jumps are. And this was that situation where I was just like, wow. He did what he did. I was just sitting there enjoying every single edge, every single jump. I was there for it all, and it was a thing of beauty. Guys, don't get me wrong. I love jumping, but I love it when it has a solid foundation and when it's done effortlessly. And Mikhail did this both in the short program and then again coming back in that long program. This is a well-deserved, uncontested. We're not having this conversation. He is our Olympic champion, and he won it through grits, determination, hard work, effort, and not being crushed under a tremendous amount of pressure. I had him as my dark horse for the podium, but at best, I had him at a bronze medal. He told me, hold my blade, I'm gonna show you what I can do. And he did. He did. And that is the Olympic dream. That is the uncertainty in sport that makes it incredibly devastating, but also incredibly heartwarming. Because you can go into the Olympic as a name that is not in the conversation and give it 110% and come out as an Olympic champion. Wonderful. Now, I feel like this video was incredibly dark. There was a lot of just disappointment and devastation. And so I want to end this video on a lighter note, on a happier note. And that note is the fact that Donovan Carrillo, my entertainment ice dance baby, was the Olympic flag bearer for Mexico. And we have to remember that the population of Mexico is 130 million. There are 130 million people, nearly 131 million people in Mexico. And out of the 131 million, Donovan Carrillo is the first person in 30 years to qualify for the Winter's Olympic in figure skating. First person in 30 years out of 131 million people. And Donovan Carrillo is also the 7-time Mexican figure skating champion. For him to become the flag bearer, those are the achievements that Donovan Carrillo had to have under his belt. Similarly to a lot of other athletes, in order for them to be the flag bearer of their country, that is the work and the effort they have to put in. That is the path. But that is not the only path. You know another way for you to become the Olympic flag bearer for your country? You ask your mama. That is right. One and only Deanna Flat Edge Davis. If she wants to be the pole bearer, the flag bearer, she will ask her mama. And say what you will about teamplushenko. I personally say a lot about teamplushenko, but no one can say teamplushenko is not a great mother. She bought her daughter 2 Olympic spots from 2 different countries. And her daughter was not taking Valieva's grandpa's super cocktail drugs. Her daughter was not doing pre-rotated quads that required her to get a new back, a new hip, a new thigh, a new arm. Her daughter was doing ice dance and becoming the Olympic flag bearer for her country. Mommy dearest, mother of the century. That is how I'm going to end this very, very depressing video on a very, very entertaining end. You guys let me know what was your take on this men's event.